like them to recognize his power and put up flags or something. Like, he's a completely different character. I think that was a very wise decision.
Well, they definitely made a lot of wise decisions when it came to shortening the story and kind of condensing out. Because there's probably going to be a horde of nerds breaking in here after I say this, but I honestly don't think that Tolkien was that good of a writer. Just because he was a good world builder, he is unparalleled in building the mythology and the lore and everything else that was involved with Lord of the Rings and the languages of the elves and the dwarves and the orcs and things like that. But when it got right down to like writing the story, he wasn't great. I don't know, just like it's not like, because like it's not a bad story by any means, but it's not like he would do things where he would like spend like I distinctly remember one part where like all the characters, it's in the Fellowship of the Ring, of the Rings, and all the characters are like, okay, we're gonna go to sleep now, and they're like,
oh, that's the scene that I always remember. That's when I always quit reading.
Yeah, and then like so they were like, and then Gimli slept in this branch with his head facing
Legolas was turned up 2 1/4 turns to the North Star.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna matter because like they're gonna get attacked or something.
Stuart Townsend.
Okay.
Stuart Townsend, okay.
Yeah. So they're going to get...
While Adam's Googling that, we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
And we will be back with more stuff after this break. So stay listening.
If you and a next of kin have already signed your organ donor card, we thank you. But did you know that it's still your family that makes the ultimate decision? That's why you have to discuss it with them. So, if you're listening to this right now with someone in your family, look at them and say, I want to be an organ donor. We'll wait a moment while you do that. There. It's done. Thank you. From the Kidney Foundation of Canada.
Oh, you're listening to 93.5 CHMR FM. Mon Radio in stereo, baby!
And we are back. You're listening to the Aperture on 93.5 CHMR FM, and it is a weekly hour-long discussion of all topics geek culture. I'm Rory DC.
I'm Adam the Porch Knight.
This is Katie Black.
And today we are talking about Lord of the Rings, and just before the break we found out that it was in fact Stuart Townsend, who was originally scheduled to play Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings movies, and I'm not sure how good an actor he is, but thankfully that didn't happen.
He was Dorian Gray in the film version of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and really nothing else noticeable.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, the only other movie I recognize here that he's in was Aeon Flux.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's.
And he had apparently a main role in that. I think he had a minor role in that. So.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. Too bad, Stuart Townsend.
That's a shame.
We're going to close you out of Wikipedia now because you're not important enough to keep a tab.
Just to ask, just on the topic sort of Vigo, did anybody else see The Road?
No, yes. I really wanted to, though.
I loved it. I thought it was superb. What did you think?
I thought the movie was, I thought it was interesting that, like, at the end, there really isn't much hope. Like, it sort of kills all that after you. You sort of expect it to get something back, but it just kind of gets more horrible. But what's amazing about Vigo, he's such an amazing actor. Like, doing that, like, I think he slept outside in the snow in his costume for, like, a month or something.
Really?
He lost, like, all the weight for it, right? He's just insane like that.
When he was playing, like, when we were filming Lord of the Rings, they didn't need him for all of the scenes, especially in the Two Towers and Return of the King, just where, like, Frodo and Sam would do their stuff and he would do his stuff. So, oftentimes, if he would, like, go to the store, he would just have his sword on him, so he'd, like, walk into, like, a convenience store and he'd just have, like, a broadsword hanging off of his belt, and they'd be like, what you doing there? And he's like, oh, I'm playing Aragorn in the movie, and you're like, oh, okay. he could have been any random guy just walking into the store with a broadsword. He would whip it out and, like, start practicing with it, like, on the street, like, just to, like, practice his moves. Like,
his stunts are very well done. I was always impressed with his stunt work.
Apparently, was it, like, who's the guy who, the trainer that they had?
Oh, he's, like, the swordsman trainer in film. He made a movie, you should have to look him up, I don't know. But anyway, he did say in his movie about, like, sword fight in film that Viggo Mortensen was the greatest swordsman he ever trained. And Viggo Mortensen had no experience with swords before Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so that's pretty
But what is cool, I think, is in Fellowship, in the orc fight at the end. Is it an orc fight or Uruk-hai fight? Uruk-hai fight, sorry. But there's a scene where a stunt guy, like, his sword, like, slipped out of his hand and went straight at Aragorn. And in the movie, like, you see, like, him pull up his sword and knock the blade out of the way, which is, a heavy prop,
Yeah.
whatever they're using, like their hacksaws or whatever. But that was accidental, and he just whipped around and got that out of its face, and that was a shot used, but like it could have, really hurt him. And also kicking the helmet when they're looking for Merry and Pippin, and they have the burning tower of heads.
In the two towers.
Yeah, in the two towers. He kicks the helmet, actually breaks his toe.
Yeah.
And that's the scream. It's just a lot of interesting things.
Because he wasn't supposed to scream at that, was he? He was just supposed to kind of kick the helmet.
Like he was supposed to scream, and they didn't think he was putting enough like emotion into it, so he had to keep screaming and keep kicking and keep screaming, and then he broke his toe and then really screamed. They're like, "Oh, that's perfect. Can you do that again?" It's just like
nope.
Hospital.
And Peter Jackson is really good at always picking his best shots of everything. Like he has like Tarantino sort of film vision of it.
Well, we were Christopher Lee, who played Saruman. He was talking, and he said that he was his first scene that he filmed, and it was with Ian McKellen, who played Gandalf, and it was the scene where they're in Isengard walking through the trees, and Peter Jackson kept being Peter Jackson's like, okay, we need to do it again, we need to do it again. So Christopher Lee turns to Ian and just says, we're doing 12 takes. Is something wrong? It's like, oh no, that's just how Peter Jackson does it. He does like 12 takes every time. It's like I did a scene earlier this morning, and it was just me talking. I had to do 24 takes, and and he always seemed to get the best performances out of his actors, because there's a scene where Christopher Lee is just walking up some stairs, and he's in the Saruman robes, and he keeps tripping because he's like 90, and so he finally turns around at one point. He just like says, I can't do it, Peter. I cannot walk up these stairs, and Peter just says, well, you did it this morning. He says, all right, and he just keeps going.
Well, it's also interesting, this scene there was talking about around then when Frodo sends Sam home, when they're going up the stairs to Shelob's lair, and he's kind of been taken in by Smeagol and Gollum, and the ring's kind of getting to him. He says to Sam, go home.
Spoilers, by the way.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's been out for what, 13 years?
No excuse.
I don't believe we have to actually warn for that. But anyway, the take that they had initially chosen, and I mean, of course, Elijah did, who plays Frodo, I guess must have been 20, 30 takes of that, but it was very vicious. It was a very, sort of almost insane yelling of go home. And
it was like, go home, Sam!
And, his face getting all screwed up, and, it was almost too much, they realized after, but luckily they had, they were like, well, have we done a take when it was less intense? And, of course, they had almost every way to say that line, so they were able just to switch it out with something a little bit more understated that sort of went better with the scene. So I guess it's definitely a good method to have.
In the one that they went with, he just went, go home, Sam. It's kind of like, he wasn't angry, he was just like, I'm completely done with you at this point.
And even the scene of Liv Tyler, who plays Arwen, riding the horse in Fellowship, that was, I believe there was 20 hours of dailies after that or something. She wore that for 3 days. So it's just, I think him taking the time and doing the 3 movies at one time and having everyone there and having the whole country involved really, and you have B units out at the same time, and I think that just made a really cohesive trilogy. It doesn't feel like it's a sequel or a sequel after a sequel sort of that, but it is really, and I mean, in the spirit of the books, it's one movie split into 3 parts. There was never a feeling that it's changed from one to the other, except for obviously it gets a bit darker.
Yeah. As these things tend to go. I remember I heard when in the battle for Minas Tirith in the Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, which is the 3rd one, there's a scene where there's a big cavalry charge done by the riders of Rohan, and in order to get this to do this scene, they send an email or send a letter to every single person in New Zealand that says, do you have a horse? Can you ride it? Do you want to be in a movie? Please come. And so every single person who had a horse and could ride it in New Zealand ended up being in the shoot. And they dressed them up in costume, and so there was what, it must have been over 1,000 people, and there's okay, charge down this hill, and they're okay, we can really only do 3 takes of this, and then everyone's gonna have to go home. And but it was I've seen you just see there's a guy on a camera with a camera, and he's on a truck, and they're driving by, and you just see an actual honest to God cavalry charge coming down over the film. This must have been just epic to film.
Actually, one of the techniques that Weta did pioneer was, I think in the Battle of Helm's Deep, they had a fair good number of stuntmen, and that was a 30 or 5-week night shoot or something. But they one of the techniques they did do was you had your core group of people, and they were able to replicate that on thousands of times to get the full army.
Yeah.
And that was one of their techniques. I'm sure that's used a lot when you have large numbers of people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to watch the feature for that.
Also, one of the best edited movies I've ever seen.
Yes.
Honestly. Although, it's some directors are like some guys have a lot of trouble, I think, with Tarantino.
Yeah,
but that's probably only